Let's submit this thing and see what happens. Well, actually, we can look at the params here. This is really useful. So here's params of email is the email address, and params of ID is the token. So those are the things that are displayed here in the debug information. Let's update this password. Okay, this just got routed to the update action here. Now Rails is trying to render a template, but there is no such template. Let's think about what can go wrong here. Well, let's handle the case of success. Let's say if user, well, how do we handle updating something in the case of users? Remember, that's at user.update attributes of user params. So we're going to want the same thing here. This should be if at user.update attributes, and we want strong parameters, as over here. Except in this case, instead of name and email, in addition to password and confirmation, we just want the latter two. So we can do this. So if at user.update attributes, that means we successfully updated the password. Now we can do like this. Flash success, saying that it's been correctly updated. And we want to log the user in for convenience. And then let's redirect to the profile page. And actually, I think logically it should probably be in this order. It doesn't really matter. But typically the flash happens right before the redirect. And if this fails, we should render back the edit form. Save that and see what happens here. So this is really tricky. It says undefined method update attributes for nil class. That's almost always an indication that there's an instance variable that hasn't been defined. So let's take a look at this. It's complaining that this at user is nil, which means that this did not find the user. Let's go back to the edit form here. Just refresh that. Probably did need to be refreshed, but now let's update the password. See what happens. Same problem. Let's look at the params to see what's happening. You can see here in the params, there's a user, there's a password confirmation, but there's no email. This thing here, this key value pair, params of email, doesn't appear when we submit this thing. And indeed, that's true. Let's take a look at the form again. The email isn't anywhere in here. Somehow, though, we need to pass the email of the user to the update action. Before we had access to the email because it was being submitted as part of the form, but here the form is just this. It's just password and confirmation. So what we really want is the email to be somewhere on this form but not be displayed. And there's a way to do that. Let's go to the edit form here. The way to do that is to put a hidden field here. Now we could use f.hiddenField here, but that would give rise to params of user of email instead of params of email. So it's more convenient to use hidden field tag in this context. So hidden field tag symbol email, and then the email address is the user's email. Save that, and now let's take a look at the form. So if we look at this here, now there's a hidden field that has value equal to the email and name equal to the email here. So this is what's going to give us the parameter. Let's submit this thing. In fact, let's put in wrong passwords there. You think I could have left it blank, but we'll see in a moment why that's not right. Let's submit invalid passwords. You can see that our validations have been invoked and have been displayed. That's because of this. Remember, this is an @user object, right? so that our shared error messages partial is designed for users. We'll generalize that in the next lesson, but for now, this is great for rendering user errors. So all of the machinery that we built in the context of signing up users is now being reused. Meanwhile, though, let's take a look at our debug information. And here you see there's our email. That's from the hidden field that we added. So this is working now. So this is coming through here, where it's calling @user.updateAttributes. It's not valid, so this is false. And then it's rendering back the edit form like this. Now, I mentioned that we had a problem with these blank password and confirmation. Let's submit this with blanks. This shouldn't work, but it did. It didn't actually do anything, but it looks like it worked. And the reason for that is because, remember, when we updated the settings to allow users to update their information without filling out password and confirmation, we changed the user model here. We added this. We put in allow blank true, which is great when we're updating a profile. But the problem is that on this form, if both of these are blank, that should not be valid. So we need to catch that explicitly. There's no easy way that I know of to add this to the model, so what we're going to do is catch this here in the controller and render back a flash message. Let's put that here. Let's see if, let's look at the params. We've got params of user of password. So we want if params of user of password and params of user of password confirmation. We want if both of those are blank. By the way, the reason I put the paren here is I knew that I was going to have to break it across a line. It'll work either way, but I just like the visual appearance of this better. Anyway, so if both of those are blank, then say flash of danger. Oh, and we're going to be re-rendering the edit page, so this should be flash.now. Say they can't be blank, and then render back the edit page, and then add this else if. See if that worked. Good, password confirmation can't be blank. You might wonder why we didn't just test one of these, right? If just params of user of password is blank, that's also invalid. But we only have to catch the case where they're both blank, because otherwise, if only one of them is blank, our validation will catch it. Like that. There's one more thing to add to this action. Remember we said we would expire the password reset after 2 hours. So let's do that. I say if user.password reset expired question mark. This doesn't exist. We'll have to put this on the user model. But if this is the case, then put in a flash message. See, it's expired. And then redirect. Let's redirect to the root URL. Well, actually, you know, it's more convenient to redirect to the new password reset URL. This gives the user a chance to issue another password reset. So that'll work. And then you change that to an else if. Oops, it's not else if, it's just else if, no E, no second E. And then in the user model, we need to add this method, this password reset expired method. So copy that here. Now this is a little tricky. if you want to see a formal proof of what I'm about to show you, that can be found in the final section in Chapter 10 of the Ruby on Rails tutorial book. The way to do this is to compare the reset sent at timestamp to 2.hours.ago. At this point, you might be tempted to say, well, it's expired if the reset was sent at more than 2 hours ago. But in fact, this is the opposite of the correct answer. It should be less than. And the way to understand that linguistically is just to read this less than sign as earlier than. So if the reset was sent at earlier than 2 hours ago, then it means it's expired. So 3 hours ago is earlier than 2 hours ago. In that case, this thing will return true, and the password reset will have expired. Of course, this is annoying to test. We don't want to actually have to wait 2 hours to test it in the browser, and so this will be done as part of an integration test, and that's left as an exercise. This is looking like it's in pretty good shape now, but if you think about it, there's something wrong. Well, there's some formatting wrong here. Let's fix that. But there's something really disconcerting here, which is that we have not used the authenticated method at all. In fact, we haven't authenticated this in any way. Remember, we're supposed to be authenticating this reset token against the reset digest in the database. But right now, there's nothing like that at all. In fact, I can put any token in here, some random token, /edit, !, email equals michael@michaelhartle.com, so %40. And this is now a password reset form for an email address that I might not have any control over, and with a token that has nothing to do with anything. So in fact, this thing is completely insecure. This allows anyone to get control of anyone else's account. So what we want to do is make sure that doesn't happen by authenticating this token against the reset digest. So let's go down here. We can actually put that right here in get user. This should apply both to the edit and update actions. Remember, that's where our filter is applying. So this @user, we should redirect to the root URL unless several things are all true. In fact, there's something else we haven't even done. You can check this out. Just put in some garbage here. So an invalid email address gives us an error. So what we should do here is catch that by saying unless @user and that user should be authenticated based on the token. So that's reset token. Remember, that's what we did here. We want to give it the attribute and then the token. So the token is in params of ID. And there's one more subtlety, which is that we do not want users to be able to log in, which happens right here, if they aren't activated. So we should say and not activated. So unless all of these three things are true, we should redirect to the root URL. Now if we go back, refresh this, you can see we got redirected. And here, if we give it a correct email address but a garbage token, it should also be redirected. Great. At this point, we've checked a bunch of things that can go wrong, but we haven't actually done a successful password reset, so let's do that. Here we go. So this should be valid. Nope, it did not work. I wonder why. Oh, this is a bug. It shouldn't be unless @user and not @user.activated. It should be the user is activated. So let's try that one more time. Okay, now we've got to the reset password form. All right, the password has been reset. In fact, let's log out and log in again with the new password. Oops, that was my password. Now you know it's Fubaz. It wasn't supposed to be secure. Log in here. I just saw two forms, or two fields, and I just was on autopilot from the previous form. There we go. All right, that's working.